Howdy there, everybody. You're probably wondering what the hell I'm doing with there being basically nothing else on the screen right now. Well, this is basically technically episode 0 of the Deputy Rust podcast. Whatever, I don't know what the name of this is going to be, but essentially this is going to be a podcast I'm working on in order to provide updates and just talk about upcoming things and talk about behind the scenes stuff and just be a bit more of a more like a centralized yapping zone for me. Because I tend to yap a lot when I stream, but I do get a bit disorganized and my thoughts are not as well put together. I work a lot better when everything that I want to talk about, I've already, thought about and pre-planned ahead of time, and I'm able to fully articulate like that. I'm not always able to articulate on the fly when it comes to a lot of creative discussion or questions that people have about me, because unfortunately I've learned over the years, my brain does not always work on the fly in that regard when people are wanting to do a bit more of a deep dive dissection. And it is fun to yap when I'm doing streams and such. However, it becomes a lot more like a stuttering thing sometimes, or I get stuck in a little bit of a stun loop, essentially. And either I'm not getting art done, or we're not playing the game too much, and I want to be able to have the streams still be a place where I can chat here and there. But I know that there's a lot of people that would prefer it if they just heard me in a more consistent manner when I'm talking about different things like, hey, what was the inspiration for so-and-so? What's your process? How do you do art? And things like that. I think it'll be better for that kind of stuff to be in a more contained and pre-prepped environment like this. So that way I'm able to just, focus on myself talking. I'm able to look at my notes easier, not have to worry about a bunch of people watching and making sure everybody's engaged and all that. I think this will be a bit more of a better experiment to try out for a bit, and basically be a way, just like I said, to have a more contained area for me to talk about different things, whether that's about comics, whether that's stuff that I'm going to be working on, and different things like that. I've also tried for the longest time trying to create different types of videos, trying to work on things like, what if I made these little lore videos and things like that. And frankly, I've also learned that the more and more things I've stacked up, and the more that I see the effort okay. Basically, I work on everything by myself. Everything that you see me do when it comes to creating videos, when it comes to doing artwork and comics, it's all handled by me. Streams are handled by me. Doing the editing for different videos is handled by me. I don't really have anybody else helping me in this regard. In fact, for this podcast, still, it's going to be me handling things here. But to me, doing a podcast like this is a lot easier to focus on than trying to edit a video, get the footage, make sure everything's all timed up properly, especially because some things it's just been okay, I know enough about this to make it work, but not enough to keep consistently doing it and that type of thing. And I want to be able to get better at that. But unfortunately, when you having to wear a lot of different hats, you're not able to master every single hat as well as you want to. And I really want to make sure that I'm keeping folks in the loop and doing something to give content while I'm working on the bigger stuff. And for example, I am working on different little mini comics that I'll be talking about later in a bit. I just want to talk about the purpose of this podcast in this video. Also, essentially, here's how things are going to go down. There's going to be a podcast every week. There's going to be a different subject matter. The first episode that's going to be going live on Patreon is going to be about episode 1 of Unbreakable Iron Ranger and the creative process behind that. And there's going to be an episode that comes out every week that'll debut first on the Patreon, and then it'll go public elsewhere, like on YouTube, and hopefully on things like Spotify, the Apple Podcast thing, and things like that. But like I said, the whole point of this podcast is essentially to be a more funneled means of yapping, essentially. So that way I'm able to just yap and stuff and do it in a much more organized method. So people are actually able to okay, Rust isn't having to stop and start due to games and things like that. And I know that that could be annoying, especially for someone like me, that I need there to be a bit more of a consistent train of thought. Also, as I've gotten older, hitting more of that unk status, as it were, I have also realized that a lot of people may not have enough time to watch every single video I do. And the fact that I don't even post videos that often isn't helping either. So I'm just like, yeah, what's a quick way that I could keep people updated and people are able to stay engaged and stuff? Because, and that's podcasts. Podcasts would be a pretty good way to do that. And so I'm just like, yeah, that'll be a better way than just trying to like make little. I hate using the word slop like this. Like slop, like fucking content farms or like slop channels and things like that. Like, I don't want to just like make random little videos, like blog type of things, because I feel like that's low content. And I know that like it's like, oh well, you're doing a podcast. But the thing is, podcasts are able to like get everything out all in one long burst. And everybody usually prefers that longer burst where they could just have something to listen to while they're doing tasks or things like that. But like doing blogs, that's like, well, like 2 to 3 minutes. And that's not always the best length. At least nowadays, it's not the best length because everybody's got to be doing stuff. This isn't like back in the days of like 2007, 2009, where like everybody was able to post shorter videos and people would just keep replaying them. This is a different time that we're in. But yeah, so I decided we're going to do this podcast. And like I said, there's going to be focusing on different things relating to the comics I work on, different subjects that the people on Patreon are going to be deciding. There's new functionality on the Patreon for a certain Patreon tiers. Essentially, there's a certain tier that you're able to like, hey, I want like suggest a topic for the raffle, and I pick from that raffle, and that week we're going to do that. Then there's also as I said, it's going to be debuting on Patreon first. So if you're just in the very baseline Patreon tier of just $1, you're going to be able to see that first, and then it'll be available the next week for everybody else, essentially. Yeah, sorry. But yeah, that's going to be what the purpose of this podcast is. The first episode that's going to be coming up on Friday is going to be about Unbreakable Iron Ranger's first episode and the process that's going into that went into that whole episode, and just some other little things. Just a nice little yap session about that. Starting later this week, I am actually going to have it that people can start on the Patreon if you're above the $1 tier, like you're in the next tier for, suggesting the raffle stuff. People can start suggesting their topics that they want to see me do, and I'll be able to do that on different weeks. Also, I do want to try to get some of my buds on here on the podcast to it's like a little co-host or guest type of thing. But for the most part, this is going to be me just, yapping by myself and just talking by myself. So yeah, you're going to be hearing me yap essentially for like an hour roughly. And if I get a buddy in here, it may be longer than that. It may end up being longer, or some yap sessions of mine might end up being longer as well. I will try to have some visual content, at least for people that watch us on YouTube, in case I'm talking about characters and I need to pull up a reference and stuff like that, so people can be like, oh, I want to see what this character looks like. I do want to have some visual stuff, but at least with this, I don't have to do too much visual stuff. And I could just okay, I'm just going to get like a background drawn for this, put the audio here, and just put in the video editor, and then just export and upload it to YouTube, essentially, or Patreon, all that. But that's the whole goal with this, at least, is to have something like that so people can at least have some kind of content on a weekly basis, and it gives the Patreon also a little bit more of a purpose as well. That's another thing, is I've been wanting to try to get more on top of things and try to get them more on top of the Patreon and give people some kind of content, especially because I have not been working on comics in a good bit, and I've been trying to, but oh my god, dude, it's, oh man. I really fell off the wagon on comic production as COVID hit, and I've never been able to get on that same grind as I did back in 2018 to 2019, like for Unbreakable Iron Ranger, and it sucks. There was a period in early 2023 where I was able to do a weekly production. That was kind of stupid of me, but I was able to do this a little test run for Crips and Cowboys, and I learned a lot from that. But unfortunately, just kind of realize that I cannot do that. This is going to tire me out. But yeah, like I said, I just at least want there to be some kind of content that people can engage with and have something so they can hear me do, and not just be small little segments of being like, yeah, this is the thing I'm doing today. Hi guys, this is the video I'm doing today, and that kind of thing. And just well, yeah, I want there to be more contained episodes. People can go to this and be like, oh, okay, so this was going on this episode. Because for me, one of the things I miss about early online stuff is when there was creator pages and things like that, and you could go to these blogs or go to these special videos and see these behind the scenes content and see what the creators talk about. It's not that that doesn't exist nowadays, but it doesn't feel as encouraged, and it kind of feels like everything's been weakified and such, and there's not as much of a personal connection, it feels like, anymore, because now you got like all these little wikis, but now it's like you got like the wikification of a lot of media, and things just become more like fun facts and stuff. Now, I love fun facts, trust me, but I love more about knowing what the creators of certain projects, like actually hearing them talk about the process and like what they were doing with their collaborators and stuff. One of my favorite examples of recent memory has definitely been when Team 4 Star was doing their commentary on Dragon Ball Z Abridged. And it was just really fun hearing hearing Nick, Scott, and Curtis. Oh god, I don't know why I'm referring to the first name like that. I don't know them that well. They refer to themselves now like that, but like Lanny Takahata and Kaiser, like all talking about that and talking about like their process, the members that they had, like who wrote what joke, and just like seeing them banter during that, and you could tell just from their banter and stuff who actually said what joke, even if they weren't talking about, but like you could tell their senses of humor. And just seeing how they collaborated on that. Like, it was also really funny just seeing, like, how the dynamic changed. Like, when Takahata finally got back onto the commentary when they were discussing the Cell Saga, once Cell was properly introduced. And just seeing the dynamic change. You could see that original dynamic from when Team 4 Star was first doing Dragon Ball Z Bridge and that kind of thing. You can really tell that energy and that feel. It was funny to see the massive derailments that happened, though. But it's funny, but like you could see how they went about the process and seeing how they talked about things and getting more of that personality beyond just like, oh, here's a little fun fact, here's a tidbit. And like seeing how like they perceived their work and how they were thinking at the time, and just like the moments where they're like, I wasn't really thinking about that at the time, and like, or like thinking about the coincidences that happened, just their reaction to that type of thing that some of the people knew about, and they were like, wait, you didn't know? We thought you knew about that. We thought that's why you put that joke in. That kind of thing. And I love that shit. And I want that to be something that people can enjoy me happy about, because for some reason people like hearing me talk about my process. And it's a little bit weird, but I do want to oblige a bit more in a more focal aspect of that. I will say, I do apologize. This one's been a little bit messy. Future podcasts will be less messy, but I at least wanted to do this as like a little, hey, this is happening this week on Friday on the Patreon. I'll link to that in this below. But yeah, so that's going to be what's happening. Also, there's this basically to give you an idea about how things are going to go. There's going to be different segments to this podcast just to give it a bit more of a rhythm to it. There's going to be an introduction, like always. There's going to be a briefing, which is essentially, hey, this is what's going to be happening this week, essentially. And because this podcast is the first one, and the first one, this podcast is episode 0. The first one's going to be on Patreon. But I want to try with these briefs to not be like, hey, this thing's going to be happening tomorrow, and it's like behind a paywall, and people are going to be like, what the fuck did you do that? So I'm going to, for the briefs are going to be more like general status updates, essentially. I won't give one today, because this one, I'll give one today. Right now, there is currently going to be a mini-series with Ben and Frankie from Breakable Iron Ranger I'm going to be working on, because I think I figured out what I can do, because there was a problem that I had when I was working on Daisy Eternal and working on Max Spider-Man stuff. It's not that I don't enjoy working on them. I do. The problem is that those become more of the highlights, because those are related to fandoms that people are more in tune to, essentially. And because of that, it makes it much more difficult to get people to funnel in to my original work, which is what I'm wanting to be the main breadwinner for, because as much as I love doing the fan content, I don't know if there's an easy way to monetize that, especially off the Maximum Spider-Man stuff. There's no fucking way. Maybe Daisy Eternal. I don't know. But at this point, I really don't. I don't know. I don't think so. We'll see. But yeah. So I will say I'm not going to stop doing those, but I am wanting to try to make more of my original work a priority. I just want to focus on a better way of saying, hey, here's the fandom stuff that people might like. See if you might like this thing, which is something similar. And by having that little Ben and Frankie series where it's just like, cute slice of life romantic stuff with them, because everybody loves Ben and Frankie, it could be a nice little funnel for them to go like, oh, I want to see more of this world that was developed and stuff. I want to see more of these characters. I might get them to check out Unbreakable Iron Ranger, or check out The Wolf of New Orleans. Speaking of, episode 2 is still in production. I was really wanting to try to get more episodes out this year. Hopefully I could get at least 2. At least 2. That's my goal, is to get at least 2 more out this year. and basically complete that first intro arc, essentially. Oh, also, another little thing. There's going to be a upcoming teaser campaign. And I know that sounds weird, teaser. It's a shirt campaign that I'm going to be working on. Right now I'm waiting for the sample shirts to come in. But that's another little fun little thing. So there's going to be that. It was originally going to be launching for a certain date. We may push back. I just want to make sure that we get the sample shirts in and make sure they look good and that kind of thing. If we need to do anything else, we need to change that. Same process that happened with the makeshift thing. Like, I just want to make sure that everything's all spick and span and good to go. But yeah, there's that. There is, like I said, that's about it for the meantime. But the Ben and Frankie series should be coming out here soonish. I'm working on trying to get a backlog of at least 4 weeks made, so that way I can just focus on keeping production going. So that way there's at least one episode a week, that type of thing. Also, Daisy Eternal, I kept talking about this on socials of like saying I'm going to re-release this here soon. I promise I'm going to work on it here soon, but things keep getting pushed back. And then the whole freaking shit with it happened where like Microsoft decided, hey, we're gonna fire one of our best teams, and it's like, oh great, how much you're firing off of them? And it's like the numbers kept being really inconsistent. Like, oh man, dude, I got a lot more emotionally wrapped up in that for good reason, because like it's fucking good. They were like making some of the best games at Microsoft, and like they made Doom, they made Wolfenstein, they made Quake, and even though it may not be the same exact team, the team that was working there had the same essence and creativity and drive of OG id. It sucked to see them go, because like they were doing, even if you may not have liked every single thing they were doing with Doom, they were doing new things and they were doing them well. Like each new Doom game that was coming out, there was something for everybody. Or like this was your Doom game, this was my Doom game. Essentially, none of them were bad. It's just they all had something unique that they were wanting to do and try to break out and do different. And they had that creativity. That's what I loved about them. But now it doesn't feel like we're probably going to get them trying to do something new or working on Quake, because now they're probably going to have to refocus on like just staying afloat for a bit. So while we might get more Doom games, which wouldn't be bad, I'm kind of disappointed. That sounds stupid, because as much as I love Doom, but it's like I was really wanting to see what they did else, like what else they could have done. Like I said, doing a reboot of Quake or doing a brand new IP entirely. But we're probably not going to get that, at least not for a good bit. But yeah, anyway, the point aside, things are still being worked on. I'll talk more about them in a different discussion. There may be a Daisy Eternal episode. That'll be fun to talk about. But yeah, thank you guys so much, at least, for listening to this podcast. Remember, it's going to be on the Patreon. It's going to be in the link below. Or if you're already watching this on Patreon, you're already here. But it's going to be on Patreon, patreon.com/DebutyRust. And that's where it's going to be for when it first goes up. And then it'll be moved over to YouTube and other public spaces. Speaking of YouTube, I'm going to try to see if I can get a YouTube membership thing going. I don't know if I'm at the specifications for that yet, but you know what? Hey, that might be a nice little way for people on YouTube to feel like they're getting something a bit early as well. But yeah, thank you guys so much for listening to the podcast. I do hope you enjoy the series. I want to at least give it a test run for a bit, see how well it does. But yeah, thank you guys so much for listening to this podcast, and I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day. I'll see you guys on Friday. Have a good one, and God bless.